Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 632nd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have a long time, what do I call him? I've been a secret admirer. You know, it's not even secret. I've been public about admiring Jiu-Jitsu, Nick Albin. He is I already forget. I think he's a second-degree black belt. We talk about that in the episode, but I followed him for a couple of years at least on Instagram. I got to meet him about 6 weeks ago in Maine at the Origin Immersion Camp. And so it was cool having him on the show and hearing his story, how he got started, how he got through COVID, how he is growing now. And it's a great story. And I didn't know all of this about him. So it was cool catching up. I love doing things with Jiu-Jitsu. I'm working on a program as well for business/sales/ Jiu-Jitsu people. Start off with a live event, 3 days, and then roll into ongoing training and support. It's just a cool sport and teaches you a lot about life. So it was cool having him on. If you are needing some help in the meantime, even if you're not in Jiu-Jitsu, but you need help with your sales, with your marketing, copywriting, training your salespeople, hit me up. All right. You can check out the Implementors. I'm going to add that link. So it's like implementer, but mentor, theimplementors.com. I had the first call today. I've got folks interested in signing up. It is, well, just check it out. I'm doing a free call on Fridays to go over it. And on the registration, you can learn more about it as well. But it's meant for more experienced people, okay, not necessarily for beginners. You need to have some income coming in, and you need to have some bigger problems. I'm going to roll out the inner circle here before too long, and that'll be aimed at W-2 salespeople, maybe folks with a little bit lower income that just need some good training, good support on a regular basis. So I'm trying to hit two different demographics, socioeconomic groups. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, in the month of August, check out the Implementors. Fridays, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm doing those calls for people to check it out, ask me questions, kick the tires, and then make an informed decision if it's right for you. All right. The CRM quiz is still alive and well. So if you're shopping for CRMs, check that out. crmquiz.com. And you know what? I think that's about it. This is Friday afternoon, so I'm going to finish this up. My grandkids are over. My son flew down from San Francisco. We got an HOA party tonight. It's just a lot going on, you know. So we'll keep it short and sweet. Here comes our interview with Jiu-Jitsu.
There it goes.
And we're on with the man, the myth, Jiu-Jitsu, Nick Albin. How the heck are you?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm good. You know, they say never meet your heroes, but, you know, I met you, man, and it was not a letdown. You know, you might be better in person than you are online, man. And you're, you know, I get verklempt. I get a little sweaty watching you on the Instagram, you know, but in person, you're even better.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I'm always curious. You know, when someone meets me, like, I wonder, because again, it has no bearing on me. It has a bearing on the person, right? I always wonder, I'm like, what was that interaction like for them? Because they had a idea of who they thought I was, and then they got to meet me and like, okay, well, how do you think I am now? And so it's always an interesting thing.
Well, I think like the best compliment I got, you know, it was years ago. Somebody came into the office and they're like, "You're just like you sound on your podcast." I'm like,
oh,
well,
cool.
I hope so. You know, it's like,
yeah,
I'm not smart enough to have an alter ego. I can't keep all that straight.
That's right. I agree. I'm right there with you.
So it was cool. Yeah, it was cool meeting you in Maine. I have followed you for a while. So the people listening, I mean, you have a successful business now. Are you a 3-stripe black belt?
Yeah, so 3rd degree black belt jiu-jitsu.
Well,
yeah.
Yep. But I'm always interested in learning the story of a jiu-jitsu guy. Because like my professor, he's a little bit older than me, late 50s, and you think, oh, you were just born with this black belt killing people, but he was like, I learned about, he had a regular job before, and was teaching at night, and had to grow this thing until it became self-sufficient. And but you're much more visible online. So what were you doing? How did you find jiu-jitsu?
Well, so I got into jiu-jitsu when I was 18. So it was, I mean, you could rewind back. I was trying to train in some capacity when I was in high school wrestling around 16 or 17. Me and my buddies would like find stuff online and try to mimic it as best we could. You got to remember, this is 2000, in the early 2000s. So YouTube wasn't around yet. Streaming video wasn't ubiquitous, so that you couldn't just find this stuff. So we would have VHS tapes or try to watch a fight and mimic something. And me and my wrestling buddies would basically fight each other. And then we started together. I grabbed a couple of them and we started doing jiu-jitsu in 2003 in May, when I was still in high school. And that's how I began training. And I wanted to train jiu-jitsu because I wanted to fight in MMA. And for whatever reason, jiu-jitsu was just one of those things where, grappling, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu and those things, they were like the only place when I was younger that I felt like I kind of belonged. And so, when I was in those places, I felt like I was in the right place for me. And so I got started and I just kept going from there.
Yeah. So you're a good bit younger than me. I graduated high school in 88. And
88. Wow. I was born in 85.
Damn, man. I was in the Air Force.
I had the same, I have that same experience where I'm like, I was, like I'll go to my guys now because I'm getting older, right? So I have students that come in and they're like, oh, I was born in 2003. They're 20, so they're like, oh, you were born when I started jiu-jitsu. Whoa, like I'm getting old.
We've got a guy, he's in the Navy, so he comes back and forth. He's here all week. He's on leave, and 4-stripe purple belt. And he's really higher than that, but he's gone, so he doesn't get official training, right? But he works out with the Marines and doing their combat stuff, and he's a fit for me. And but we were talking the other night, and I was like, are you 30? He's like, I'll be 29 like in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh my gosh, 25 years younger than me. No wonder you're giving me issues. It's like, I don't feel so bad.
That's right.
There's a difference, man. Oh my gosh. So you want to do MMA, huh?
Yeah, I wanted to when I was younger. I did. So I fought for about 6 years. I did it.
Oh wow.
Had about 13 fights. It was good. It was something to do. And then I was like, as I got older, or as I got more into MMA, I realized that I just liked grappling. I liked the environment more. I liked the people that I was fighting, the opponents. I generally liked them more than I liked the MMA opponents. Yeah. And, I no longer had a drive to do it. And, when you're getting your head knocked around, you have to kind of question, do I have the desire for this? Right. Because I think that life is basically, there's always desire and discomfort. Anytime we get into something, there's going to be some discomfort. And if our desire's there, no matter what, we'll do it. But if it's not there, we're not going to do it. And I no longer had the desire to be a fighter. And in my last fight, I took some good shots, and I was kind of like, my desire is not there anymore, so I'll let this go. And I just started focusing on grappling only, after around 2012 or so.
Yeah, man, it's no joke. I mean, I played football through college, and I didn't want my kids to play, and my second son played through high school, and I had concussions, but back then, man, it was just like, are you a wimp? I mean, I remember 2 days, man. I played guys I played with. One, he was a starting linebacker at TCU for 4 years. Another was a starting center at USC. So, I mean, I was the small guy at 225, and going up against these guys. And I mean, I had a full-on concussion, man. And there was no protocol for it back then. It was just, I just kept playing, and I was like, Coach, man, it really hurts. And I'm like, well, I mean, sit out, just rest, drink some water. And, that was during 2 days. And, I was playing by the weekend. And I'm like, you look around now, I don't want anybody to do that.
No, it's not smart. I remember
No.
in high school, I didn't play football to that level, but I remember in high school, we were having summer training. It was, super hot out, and we were scrimmaging, right? Basically just practicing. And I somehow got a hold of the ball. I was a lineman when I was younger. I was like, because I used to be about 230 pounds. And so I was a lineman. So I got a hold of the ball. I'm like, but I was an O lineman. I wasn't used to grabbing the ball. Like, so I'm got it. And I'm like, or no, I was an O lineman, but I was playing a practice defense for him. And I got a hold of the ball. I was like, look at me, I've got the ball. And I started running, and I got high load. One guy hit me high, one guy hit me low. Slammed into the ground. I don't really remember much for a couple days. And then when I came back the next week, my coach was like, the coach was like, where were you? Oh, I don't know, coach. And I obviously had a concussion, and my reward for that was to run extra laps at the end of training, right? So
yeah,
they just, we can talk about it almost like back in our day kind of thing, but you look back at it and you're like, I'm glad that they have a better understanding of what's going on now.
I know, man. That's crazy. So how did you put food on the table while you were fighting?
Well, when I was younger, so I came from a pretty poor upbringing, didn't come from a very wealthy family. We were pretty poor. And so when I got into the fighting stuff, I didn't have any grand plan. I just, this was what I wanted to do. And so at the time, I remember, so there was a period where me and a buddy, we lived in a studio apartment. We both trained. We were both in school. And I mean, we're in a small apartment, you know what I mean? Basically, there was a walk-in closet that I made a bedroom out of where I could fit a bed, and he slept in one room. And it was just, it was what it was. We did that for a couple years until we kind of got around to it. And after I went to school for 2 years, and I just didn't really know what I was doing with it. So I stopped doing that.
In Kentucky?
Yeah, in Kentucky. And then I got a job, and then just started focusing on training. And I was like, well, once I figure out something, I'll move in that direction. But I couldn't see myself, because I had finished my some of your basic, your associate stuff at a junior college. And then I was going to go to the big college, and I was looking at the prices, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm not for me, it was it didn't seem like a good bet. I was like, I'm going to spend this much money, put myself into this much debt, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, if I can figure out what I want to do definitively, then I'll go in there and do that. But unless I'm going to do that, I'm not going to spend the money. And so I just went and got a job, and I was doing, for a while, I was just doing some really basic tech support stuff for a while. So literally people would have problems with their internet, and that's what I was doing for a little bit, right afterwards, when I stopped doing that, before I started doing jiu-jitsu full time.
Yeah. Did you stay with one school? Did you bounce around?
I started at one school.
I'm sorry. Then a jiu-jitsu school. To hell with formal school.
right. No, I know that's where you're going.
Okay.
Yeah, I started at one school in jiu-jitsu, and I was there for about 4 years, and then I left, and then went to the gym that I'm actually at now in 2007. Started training with my coach there, and then I've been at that gym ever since, and it's me and a partner own it now, at this point.
Oh, nice. Where's the guy that was running the school then? Did he retire or move away, or just step back a little bit?
His wife, she worked for a big company that makes whiskey and stuff. And so, that's a big business here in Kentucky, and, bourbon and everything else. And so the way that they do it is they give them these assignments where they'll, ship them around different parts of the country, the world, wherever they want them to go to do work for them. And she was an executive for them. And she ended up they went to Guadalajara for a while, and they lived in Mexico. And so he had to essentially get rid of the gym. And so at that time, he basically handed the torch to me and said, all right, you're the jiu-jitsu coach now, because, I was the sort of next highest ranking guy. At this point, I was a brown belt, and I had already sort of become an assistant. So I started helping teach when I was a purple belt, because I wanted to make my jiu-jitsu better. I liked helping guys out, and people were always talking to me anyway, because I kind of just was always on the mats. And if they had a question, they may come ask me, and I was like, yeah, let me help you out. And so it went from that to then I became the head coach, late 2009.
Was it enough to do it full time, or did you still have to do the tech support job as well?
Yeah, I did the tech support stuff, and then eventually I was working in, like, I guess it was like the next tier up from the basic stuff. So I wasn't dealing with direct customers anymore, which was a little bit nicer. But things changed when I didn't want to do it anymore. So during this period where I was training, the idea of teaching full time and doing jiu-jitsu full time, it wasn't a thing. There was nobody that was really doing it in our area. There were no videos on YouTube talking about it, and the landscape was just different. You like, it's so hard to think about this sometimes, where there wasn't this, almost like the internet, you think of it's almost like a nervous system we're all connected to. And it didn't exist at the time. So you were kind of isolated by yourself. Like, for instance, like right now, if something was to happen to you, you could put up a GoFundMe somewhere and instantly people can help you out if you want to, right? But back then, like, something happened to you, you had your family and the people around you. That was it. There was no way to contact people and things like that. And so there wasn't this connection that everybody could see what other people were doing. And so the idea of doing it full time really wasn't even a thought, but it was a dream. I was like, man, this would be so cool. In 2010, I was teaching jiu-jitsu at this point, as much as I could. And in 2010, I remember there was this day, it was in March. We'd had a seminar. Afterwards, we had like a little get together at one of the bars together, all the jiu-jitsu people just hanging out, having some drinks and stuff like that. And then I was headed home, and I had to be at work the next day, but it was a Saturday evening. I was just had a good time. It's like, early in the morning. I realized that I had to be up for work at like 4 hours, something like that. And I had this like flash in my mind. I was like, okay, I pulled over and I parked my car, and I was like, all right, let me do some figuring. And I figured out the exact amount of money that I needed to make that was just going to cover my baseline expenses. Luckily, I never really took on much debt, so I could live off very little. And I was like, how much do I have to make just to get by? And then I'll figure everything else out from there, whether that be private lessons or whatever I can make extra money. And I got that number, which was a little over $1,000, and I sent it to my buddy. I was like, let's make this happen. We'll start in June. And we did. And then I went full time in June of 2010. And then I've been full time ever since.
Nice. That's awesome. So you were still a brown belt?
Yeah, I was a brown belt at the time. I got my black belt in July of 2011.
Cool. So how does that work? Like when your school owner moves away, I mean, it's kind of like real estate, right? You got to be under somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how do you find a new coach or professor?
So at the time, I was training with my coach, Colin, but at the same time, we were under, at this time, the Hanato Tavares Association. So Hanato was actually who would promote me to my black belt, and this was just how that would have worked. So I was under Colin, but Hanato was going to be the person to give me my black belt. That's how that worked. And so I didn't change associations at the time. I was still under Hanato. So when Colin left, I was still under Hanato.
So you're like, okay, what do I need to do to keep the lights on? When did you say, all right, I'm going to blow this thing up and make it big?
Well, so I had this idea in my brain that I was like, if we start doing more classes, and if I do this, that, whatever, that something's good's going to happen, and it's going to work. And so we started running. At the time we were running classes like every other day, because we didn't have enough people. We would have classes at nighttime pretty much every night, but we only had classes in the morning like every other day. Now we were having classes every day. Even on the weekends, we had stuff going on. And, I taught a lot of classes or whatever. And it really wasn't, there was some traction. We had I was putting in a lot of effort. And what was interesting is that during that time, even though I was a brown belt, I had a lot of people coming from other gyms to start training with us, even though they were leaving black belts in gyms that had been established for a little longer. And a lot of them, basically said they felt like I was putting more effort into the product, right? The more effort into the actual training, and I was there more, all this stuff. And so, the product was pretty good. And after a couple of years, that was sharpened up. But I think we really didn't get, the gym now has over 600 members. But at the time, we didn't really start to climb until we actually started to run it like a business. And, again, that's a whole nother set of skills that you got to take on, like understanding how marketing works, understanding how to deal with leads and things like this, and having a process for all that stuff. And those are a whole nother set of skills that a lot of times martial artists don't necessarily enjoy learning. And so
most entrepreneurs don't. So
yeah, but it's like that, because it's not the fun part, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
like, but I mean, I think marketing is fun, but a lot of times, running different things, it's not always fun, but that's the stuff you have to do if you're going to have this cool thing. You could have a great product, but if you're not getting the word out, if you don't have a process of bringing people into your space and to deliver it well, it's just not going to work. And so after we got that, we did all kinds of stupid stuff trying to figure it out. A lot of stuff didn't work, but over time you sort of get a handle on it.
Yeah. So you say so have you had a partner from day one?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I've had a partner from day one, so.
Was that your roommate or somebody different?
No, different guy.
Okay.
So different guy's been my business partner. And so, we run the gym now, and, we've been running the gym since. So it's been like that. So yeah.
How did y'all meet?
So, back in the day, like when the gym was going on, he was a guy who came in and he sold memberships at traditional gyms. Right. So like he was actually like a consultant for a bunch of regular weightlifting type gyms, and he would help increase their memberships. And so he comes in and he basically was going to do some process for us similar to that. And then he sort of realized that, okay, this is like an untapped potential here. And so he starts implementing processes for leads and how to contact people and all these other things. And then that was like, we saw this initial, like, we now had a good product. We were now, like, for instance, here's an example. When we would contact people, because we had a process for getting leads off the internet, right? And when we would contact people, we would contact them, call them up. And whether they didn't answer or whatever, that was it. We never contacted them again. We'd move on to the next person. You get it, right? And as a sales guy, you understand, okay, you got to call more than that, right? And so he understood this, and he started calling people like constantly. And while, maybe to people that are, if you're a salesperson, you understand you have to do this, but to the uninitiated, sometimes that seems like, God, these people. But what's interesting is I had several people come into the gym during this period, and they said, thank you for contacting me. Because, like, for instance, one of the guys was a sales guy, and he's like, man, I'm just super busy. I'm glad you guys kept calling me because, I needed it. I want to be in here and I love being here. And he brought his whole family to train with us, right? It was him, his 2 kids, and his brother. They all came and trained. And he said, thank you for calling me, because it was like the 12th call is what got him. And so, again, so he implements that. And now if someone says, don't call me, we don't call him anymore. But a lot of times if you're just going to an answer message or whatever, that you just give him a call. So we started implementing better processes for that. And that was like one of the first big things that started to take us up, as we had ads going out, started implementing some ads going into the space. And then we had a process to actually deal with the leads once they came through, to contact them and to, offer them the product.
Yeah. You should have called me. I could have told you that.
Well, again, this is 2010, 2000, actually this is between 2010 and 2012.
I was here, man. I was here.
But here's the thing. So here's a misconception that a lot of people have. Okay. So for instance, I was in the jiu-jitsu space, right? So when I'm looking for someone to give me information, I'm going to like show me a jiu-jitsu person. Nowadays, I understand that that's a misconception, because at the end of the day, a business is a business is a business. Now there's some like personal stuff with jiu-jitsu where there's the personal aspects that you have to like respect and maintain. But at the end of the day, you're running a business. And so whether you're running a business over here, those same tactics and strategies could potentially work over here. But at the time I was looking for, something for jiu-jitsu, but back then there really was nothing related to business for jiu-jitsu. And so I was just finding random stuff, and I didn't even know where to look back then. Right. So I didn't even know. That's like one thing, right? A lot of times if we have the right questions to ask, we can get good answers, but a lot of times we don't even know what the right questions are. So we're just kind of, we're just grasping for straws.
Yeah. I know. I always tell people, our job as salespeople is to ask questions that the prospect can't answer. People are like, ooh, what? Because if I have the answer, I'm not looking.
Right.
I don't call you up and say, hey, Chewy, what's 2 + 2?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the answer, right? So we got to get them thinking, ask the questions they haven't even thought to ask. So that's badass. So how'd you handle COVID?
COVID was fine. So, I was talking about this to someone earlier. A lot of people were really scared of COVID as far as like what it was going to do to their business. I wasn't all that nervous because one, I had lived on very little. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, man, like I can live on a very little. And so no matter how all this stuff falls apart, I'm fine. Also too, I'm very frugal with my money. So is my business partner. So I live I live a very comfortable life. I have my things that I spend money on. Like we got horses and stuff like that, right? That we kind of blow a little bit of money on that aren't necessity. But for the most part, our income relative to what we spend is, it's a good balance, right? We're comfortable. So I wasn't in any danger. I'm like, I could not work for a while and I would be okay. And then in our gym, we try to be smart financially. And so we could have ran the gym with no members, no nothing for well over a year if we needed to.
Yeah.
Because there's things that we want to do in place. And so we need capital for that. Right. And so we were okay. But what we did is we said, we gave options to our students. We said, listen, if you need a cancer contract, it's fine. If you'd like to support the gym, we appreciate it. What we'll do for you is we will rent out our entire gym. So basically what we did is like told them, like, listen, you guys all pair up. You guys buddy up, find each other. You can rent everything from we have a full weight room. So all of our weights, all of our barbells, all of our equipment went out, our kettlebells, bands, the whole thing, all of our mats, sent them out. Here's mats. Here you guys go. Mat up your houses, go train with each other in small groups while you can. And then we'll figure everything out. And then when we opened back up, which was like a little over a month and a half later, because we closed in March the 13th, and then we opened back up about a month and a half later because, we were looking around and it's like, well, like, we're all right. Again, some people are getting sick. We don't have healthy young people dying in droves. And they were getting ready in my area to open up restaurants. I'm like, if you're going to open up restaurants, if people are out, protesting, which I'm completely fine with. If you want to protest, that's fine. If we're cool with people being in these big groups, I'm okay with me having a bunch of healthy people coming together and training a couple times a week. So we opened up the gym. And when we did, we just had everybody bring their stuff back and bring our mats and everything back. And then we just got back to normal. And what was interesting was we spaced out the training a little bit. So this way we could have some wider blocks of time. So as soon as the one group would leave, we would come through and clean up their space and spray it down with this disinfectant, give it time to dry, bring in the next group, that kind of thing. But the problem was that we had to, I had to use software to essentially you had to reserve your time, because when we first opened up, it was like the first day we opened back up, nobody had any other options for stuff to do. So the first day we come up, there was like 60 dudes on the mat. I'm like, whoa, like I'm okay. I'm okay. But like, this is pretty, like, at the time it was like you were watching something that if someone saw it, they could be very uncomfortable with. But for the most part, our members were great. They supported us as best they could. And when they came back to training hard, and it's been great ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. We stayed closed a little longer, but we kind of did the same thing.
You're out in California, right?
Yeah. And, California's crazy, but like our county is very conservative, and the sheriff said, hey, I'm not enforcing this business shutdown.
Yeah.
So that was badass. And but we put paper over the windows and went in through the back door.
Yeah, we did say that we had blinds. Yep.
Yeah. And so for a while, like our instructor just said, look, bring somebody. It's like my son was training. So he was like, just pair up, do your drills. And he built little 6x6 areas, just put tape on the mats. And I mean, after a while, we're like, we don't give a shit, man.
Yeah, this is silly.
Because it was like, everybody got sick over time, but like nobody got really sick. It's like you're healthy. Like we got good cardio, we're sparring. And so, we had the stamina as a culture, jiu-jitsu culture. So nobody really got wrecked, but
that's funny, because even during that entire time, like sometimes we would have someone that would get it. We never had any massive outbreaks. Like we would have like one guy, like I've had guys literally like they would send me a message the next day, hey man, I'm positive. Like, I didn't feel anything, but then, or whatever, I thought I had like some drainage from allergies, whatever. We never had any massive outbreaks. And again, I think, like you said, we're a bunch of guys that are in decent shape, but also too, we're a bunch of bunch of mongrels that are in German fested places already. So our immune systems are pretty tough.
I've got 7 kids, man. So I'm like, whatever. I eat after people. I don't give a shit. I'm not getting sick, man. I've had it all 7 times. Whatever it is. Oh man. So is anything changing now? Like, it feels like the economy's kind of slowing down. I mean, gas out here is $6 a gallon. Housing's obviously frozen. People still investing in themselves, getting in shape.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
well, I mean, see, the economies are different, right? So for instance, you're in California. We're in Kentucky. So, for instance, I bought this was a few years ago, right? I bought a property with, it's not a massive house. We've got like a little, like 2,200 square feet little ranch, and we've got 4 acres and a barn and all this stuff. And it's like 250,
yeah, nice.
Yeah, fine. No problem. Right. It's not crazy. Like out there, it's like, bro, like you're not seeing that, right? Like,
dude, I don't know how people do it. So we moved here at the end of 2004 from Texas. And we were in Austin, and Austin had a downturn because of the .com collapse, right? And Dell was big there.
Mm-hmm.
So the Austin area, we were down when I moved.
It used to be pretty reasonable down there in Austin.
Yeah, not anymore. It is crazy. My mom's still out there. Still got friends. It's crazy. But we moved out here, and it was such a bubble, right? So I rented for 6 years.
That was before the 07, 08 bubble.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. We moved here in December of 2004, and I'm like, I'm renting. And people are like, you got to buy. I'm like, hell no. So like, we're in a nice house. I'm up on a hill. There's a nice view, one of the best communities outside of the city limits. So low taxes, low HOA.
Yeah.
It got it for $330.
Okay.
And so it's worth like $900 now.
Yeah.
And so I look around, my son's in real estate, and I'm like, who's buying houses? Like, dude, I don't get it, but oh well.
It's insane. So like, going back to your point, like, so I mean, with people investing, I mean, at the end of the day, you do whatever's important to you, right? I mean, you'll just do it. And so, with far as people training and stuff like that, we haven't had any real hardcore downturns. And I can think back to, when 2009, 2010, when everything was going. Even with really crappy marketing and business practices, we still had a gym that consistently grew each year, even during that recessionary period, right? And, during different ups and downs in the market. And I think it just goes to that thing where jiu-jitsu is obviously you're investing in yourself, but it hits a lot of different boxes, right? You're getting a community that you feel a part of. And again, a lot of people yearn for a group of people that they can go be around that is like, where they feel connected to. Because we're so disconnected, even though we're connected by stuff with the the internet and things like that. But like a lot of people don't have things like churches and communities where they go into groups of people, and there's a part of us as humans that desire that, we want that. And then you have obviously the training, the skill acquisition, the learning aspect of it, the competitive aspect of it. And there's all these little things that are being checked off. So you go into a training session and it's far more than just like, I'm just working out, And so I think more than anything, it's still, even during these downturns and everything else, it's still hitting. But really, I mean, Kentucky, we're obviously going to slow and stuff like that because the economy in general with inflation, everything else, everything becomes more expensive. But at the end of the day, we still haven't, knock on wood, right? We haven't had any craziness here. And it's not like in some of the bigger markets where there's much wider fluctuations.
Yeah. When did you start going online and making, YouTube? And I follow you mostly on your Instagram. But I mean, it seems like you're always making content. How did that start?
So it started with like, first off, I always liked videos. I always found them fun. I'm a consumer of YouTube videos, right? So I basically, I want to do this thing. Well, it's at some point I started making videos for my students because, show them, hey, you missed last week's technique. Here's the technique. Or, hey, you guys that are doing quote drilling sessions, you're just coming in and talking and then rolling. And if you're going to drill, here's some drills that you could do. And I made some drilling videos, and then I started posting those. And then all of a sudden I started getting questions from people. And, they're just like, hey man, and ask me a question about something, like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my gym. Like one of my first questions I remember was like a black belt or a brown belt that was getting ready to leave his gym, and he was like having this dilemma about it. And so I just, one day I was walking, I go back for walks in the back of the gym, and I'm walking in the back, and I just popped the camera on, and I was like, well, let me tell you what happened with me, and that sort of thing. And then it just kind of grew from there. And, it sort of morphed into that, and I'm always kind of playing around with it and trying some different stuff out. But it probably began in earnest around 2015, I would say, like late 2015.
And so now, do you have a regular videographer, or do you just grab a student and say, hey, hold the camera for me? Or how do you make that work?
Both. So like sometimes it's like if I want to get something, I'll just get someone to help me out. Hey, make me real quick, and then I do have like videographers and editors and things like that work on stuff. And because when I first started doing it, it was all me. I would get someone to just record the video. I would take it in the back, I would edit it, and I would do all this stuff. And then now I just record it and then typically hand it off to the editors and the assistants that I have to help out with everything.
Yeah. Cool. What's do you have like a big overarching, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, or is it just steady as she grows and test here and there and grow what's growing, kill what's not growing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. One is we're trying to expand our gym. So we have a lot of members that drive all the way across town. They'll drive upwards of 45 minutes to an hour to get to the gym. And while I think that's like a little pat on my back there, I'm like, that's a pretty cool thing, because that means that the experience that they're getting is that valuable to them. And I appreciate that. But as we've gotten older, we've got families, right? Everybody's got kids and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that I can take care of them. So we're trying to expand a gym towards another section of town to help support those members out there. So on the gym business side, that's one of our things that we're doing. And with the video stuff, I want to tweak a few things and try things out, but I think I'm one of those guys. I get really into simply doing things and simply trying to do those things better. And sometimes I don't always have an overarching, like, massive goal that I'm after. Sometimes I do. It's like jiu-jitsu. Sometimes I have a competition coming up. Sometimes I don't. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm training every day. And like the sort of the day-to-day thing that I'm after is just the process of it. I don't really care if it's necessarily going to some big grand scales. Like, I just like being in it, doing it, because I know that that's where everything's about reps, right? Life is about reps. Our skill is all about reps. And so whatever I'm going to do is about getting the reps in and putting in the work. And so with the video side, it's more doing the videos, helping people out, continuing to do that, and then tweaking stuff to see if I can improve it and make it a better end product so people want to watch it and they enjoy watching it. But I enjoy that process. And so with the videos and stuff like that, there's little goals and little business goals that I have and creation of certain things that I want to do. But there's not some like 5-year plan that I have with it. I'm just doing it because I enjoy doing it for people.
Yeah, that's cool. How do you know you're going to teach each day? Do you have like a teaching kind of curriculum you try to cycle through, or is it based on the class, some questions?
A little bit of both. So, I have a lineup of all the positions that I want to cover throughout the year, right? And then we go through them, and we'll typically stick to a position. It could be as little as like 2 weeks. It could be as long as like 6 weeks, right? We'll just hammer that sucker out. And
what do you mean a position?
Okay, let's say, for instance, like right now we're doing half guard. So
okay.
that's the big focus that we're doing right now. Now, the reason why I decided to go to half guard is, one, I have to cover it, to go over it so people understand how to do it. But I noticed that a lot of the students who could benefit from half guard weren't able to use it as well as I would like. And so I was like, well, I want to do a deep dive on half guard. And so we've been doing half guard, and we'll be here. We've been doing it this is our second week. We'll probably be there for another 2 weeks. So it'll probably be about 4 weeks of half guard, getting like a core fundamental system in place for them. And helping them
is it even like half guard bottom versus half guard top, or
just half guard bottom for right now? So the bottom. We're just going into that one position, and then we'll add on to it in other aspects. So it won't just be just a sweep. It, like, for instance, like there's a sweep to a back take or a sweep to a submission, or we add a couple extra things to it. But I want to spend a lot of time there, right? I want to be very deliberate, because I think a lot of times when I look back at my jiu-jitsu, I got the best learning experiences when I was able to stick to something for a while, opposed to bouncing around constantly. Like, I mean, when I first started jiu-jitsu, we would literally every day was a different technique. And, you know, I barely learned anything. But I remember when I changed gyms, every now and then the coaches would start showing the same stuff for like 2 weeks, and I could grasp it so much better. And then so when we teach, we go for a period, like I said, anywhere between 2 to 4 to 6 weeks of one position. Now, when we're done with this, we're done with half guard, I'll take a look at what's going on, and we may flip it around and focus on half guard top to say, okay, we just got done showing you how this whole half guard bottom thing works. Let's show how to shut that down, because I think one of the useful things a lot of times is with teaching is if we can sort of plow the field first before we plant the seeds. If we get people receptive to the information, it's much better. Kind of like you said, going to asking someone a question they can't answer. That gets them more receptive to whatever it is that you're going to deliver. Because if you ask them a question they already know, they're like, what does this guy have to show me? I already know what he's going to say, right? But if you get me to start thinking, and then you give me an answer or an opportunity to get the answer, then I want it. And so if we go through a week of 4 weeks of half guard or whatever it might be, and everybody's getting swept and they're like, damn, I want to stop these sweeps. Well, now when I show you how to stop the sweeps next time, you're going to be receptive to that information, opposed to, you know, if you weren't getting swept all over the place. And I think it's the idea of that. I think information is more important when it's in the nick of time instead of when it's ahead of time. Ahead of time's great, but I think you retain a lot more when you're hungry for it. The other option is that we could continue on from half guard, where we say, okay, we just got here from half guard for these last 4 weeks. Here are some additional things that we could branch off into, and you can go in those directions. But trying to connect the dots for people so that each week we're going back and forth and we're adding on, or we're flipping it around and countering whatever we were just doing. And throughout the year, we should be able to cover every basic position in jiu-jitsu, and we have a basic system. So if you trained with me for a year, you're now going to have the bases covered, and you know how to play all the basics, from everything from some basic open guard to half guard to passing, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I started in January of 2017, and I did my first in-house tournament in September. And I remember our professors showed us a takedown on Friday. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know anything, right? And even after 8 months, it's like I didn't know anything. And that first fight, man, I was a grown-ass man. You know, I was 30 or 47 years old. I was so nervous. I had cotton mouth. I forgot the little bit that I knew. I forgot. I was just hanging on. And I remember one of these black belts, man, he's a good dude. He would come to my house during COVID and we trained. Okay. And so it's in-house, right? So it's just everybody's just right on top of each other. And he's like, early on, he's like, don't let that guy pass your guard. And this was a big dude. He was like chubby. But the move was I still don't know all the Japanese names, but
I don't know the Japanese names,
but you push. He let me get both collars, and you drive them. As soon as they push back, you drop.
Oh, Tomonagi probably.
Yeah, drop
like
underneath.
Flipped you right up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, and it was beautiful. And the guy recorded and gave it to me. But we both got back up, and then I remember I kind of looked at the board, and there were no points. I didn't understand. I didn't understand takedowns, and I got to be on tops because we both got up.
Sure.
Right. Because I threw him and I was holding on to him and we both got, I'm like, damn. But so we're fighting and I'm getting tired and he's trying to pass my guard. And Maurice, man, he was literally like right next to me. And he's like, do not let him pass your guard. He's yelling. I'm like, okay. And they're screaming. They're like, he's tired. Pass. I'm like, I'm not tired. I kicked him into the wall. I was like, oops, sorry, dude. I got a little carried away.
It gets wild, man. That first tournament, it's a wild experience.
Yeah, but it's like I just did okay, what I do yesterday, okay, I'll do that today because that's all my brain could process at that moment. It took a few tournaments to calm down.
Well, you also primed yourself to do that, right? So, for instance, like the last competition that we did as a team, for the last 2 weeks, we did nothing new. All we did was basically, I was like, all right, guys, game plan techniques, whatever your takedown is. And I would give them commands like, you're going to do your takedown to your guard pass or your sweep to your this, that, whatever. And you're going to do the same stuff every day for 2 weeks because that's your game plan. That's what you're going to do. It's what you're going to take into battle. Those are your weapons. We don't need new weapons. We just got to make the ones that we have sharper. And so this way, when they go in there and compete, whether it works or not, they're going to be better primed to use them. And what was interesting is I watched several of the students who had their first competitions, or maybe they had been trying to hit a particular technique. They were able to hit those things a little bit more effortlessly because they had been doing it for 2 weeks straight. So when it was time to compete, there was no, your body's taking over, muscle memory's taking over. And the last thing that your muscle memory remembers is doing the technique that you've practiced, for weeks. That's been your best thing. So I think that's an important thing for like your competitions is, making sure that you're practicing. It'd be like going for a speech. If you're going to go give a talk to someone, you're going to practice the talk that you plan to give, not practice, some talk that you don't plan to give, right? You're going to practice that specific thing because you're going to be nervous. You're going to be a little bit more on edge. So you want to make sure you have it ready.
Yeah, for sure. Most people don't have the discipline, though. The old adage is, an amateur will practice until they get it right. A professional will practice till they can't get it wrong. You got to stay at it. And then, because now, like, I realize, like, rolling with these higher belts, like, they just lay there kind of an open guard, kind of almost like they're asleep. And like, because after a while, like, okay, like if I'm rolling with a white belt, it's like, whatever, dude, I will close my eyes. Just do not jump on me and it'll be okay.
And you don't know that's not a case. So you got to pull them suckers in close. I roll with white belts like it could be a fight. Not that I think they're going to try to fight me, but you just don't know when a elbow or a knee is going to fly your way because they don't know what they're doing yet.
They don't. But just, after a while, like, in general, if you're rolling with anybody, white belt, blue belt, probably even purple belts, like, you can handle what they throw your way. So you can be calm and just enjoy the process. Not be all amped up. You've done it enough that you know where to go instinctively to stay in the fight and win the fight. So, but it's a long time. Most people won't do it. I don't even comment on stuff. You see, like, hey, my 12-year-old got his black belt in karate. Okay, good.
Well,
like, I think jiu-jitsu's different.
It is. And I think the black belt in jiu-jitsu is different than the black belt in a lot of our other martial arts. So in black belt, in jiu-jitsu, we see the black belt as like a symbol of mastery, some level of mastery, some semblance of that. When it comes to like a lot of martial arts, say for instance, karate, they don't, granted, I think sometimes, they give kids black belt. He's been doing it for like 2 years. Here's black belt. But even at like a good karate school, like they teach them how to fight and they teach them how to fight scrap and all that stuff, which there are some good ones out there. The black belt is not considered like mastery. It's like competency. You're competent. And then now you're going to go through all these different levels of black belt, right? So, you see that I think that's a difference, because talking to my buddies that are martial artists they're legit martial artists. Like the guy that does karate, he'll kick your ass, right? It's like, he knows what he's doing. He's not a joke. He didn't do broke a piece of balsa wood and then he gets his belt or whatever. He fought. But he was saying that, like, again, we don't look at the black belt the same way that we do in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, it's like this big thing. You have to be an adult. It's mastery. A lot of martial artists, it's like, it's competency. You're competent. Yeah. And that's why it doesn't take nearly as long.
Yeah. Tell you what, man, I watch these Muay Thai and kickboxing. It's like, ooh, man, I don't think I want to get in a fight with a striker.
It hurts.
These guys, holy smokes. Like, let's just all stay in our lanes and all just hug each other. Because there's some stone cold killers out there. Man.
Even the kickboxing sparring hurts. Like, jiu-jitsu sparring can be uncomfortable, but like when you're just taking like leg kicks and you're getting like beaten and like, especially with like boxing's a little different, because boxing, you can slip and you can basically dodge a lot of stuff because they only have two weapons. They have the punches. With kickboxing, a lot of times you just have to shell up and you have to check kicks and stuff, but you still have to eat a lot of physical damage. And so I remember like those MMA sessions back in the day when I was training, we would do a lot of stand-up sparring on Fridays. And I remember every now and then I'd have some of my buddies that were good kickboxers. They'd come in, and when we were done, the rest of the weekend, I'm walking around with a limp because my leg is so beaten up, it's bruised, and my jaw's popping because it's swollen. Like it was tough.
No way, man. No way. Well, so I'm linking. I grabbed your links from your Instagram. So Instagram is Chewjitsu.
Yeah.
And your site is chewjitsutraining.com, right?
Jiu-Jitsutraining.com is the website where people buy, like, if they've got a course. My actual website to go to is probably chewjitsu.net. That's the one that'll link them to everything else.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. I will grab that one as well. Yeah, because the other one is /links. So I see all of your.
Yeah, that's like the links of stuff.
You got seminars. You're doing your own open BJJ competition, huh?
We did that one. We did our inaugural one in July. I did it at the gym. It was a big success.
Nice.
Completely blew that sucker out of the water. And I'm glad that I had my buddy Jeff and his wife were helping me. Glad they were there because it wouldn't have worked without them. And we may be doing some Jiu-Jitsu open tournaments across the East Coast. We're going to be possibly partnering up with a big company. And so this was our tester. Does this idea that we have work? It worked. Could we take this and see now if we can maybe grow this and maybe make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Cool. All right. That's awesome. Well, Chewy, man, it's dinner time for you, so I'm going to let you run. But
all right, bro.
Carving out some time. It was great meeting you, and thanks for the interview.
Absolutely. Nice chatting with you, bro.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You too. Take it easy, Wes.
So many good stories in there. Business is business. I love his follow-up story with that guy with his family. Thank you for contacting me. I'm super busy. I've always talked about this multimedia, multi-step. How are you following up with your prospects and your customers? A, B, C, D, E, attract, bond, convert, deliver, endear. And it's not a straight line. It's not a funnel. It's a circle. When you attract someone to you, you bond with them, multimedia, multi-step. You convert them to a paying customer, a client, the cash. You deliver a wow experience. You delight them. Now you endear them to you. When you endear them to you, you get referrals, you get testimonials, you get repeat business. So you're back to the attraction phase. Attract, bond, convert, deliver, endear. Okay, Nick, he figured that out. But he had a passion. He stayed with it. He got involved. The opportunity came up for him to step up when his coach was leaving. But because he was involved, like he said, he was training as a purple belt. So he was learning his skill. He was getting better at the art of jiu-jitsu, but he was also learning how to become a better instructor. And that has now served him on the internet because he gives tips. And so he is attracting people to him. He bonds with his viewers. Okay. He answers questions. And then you buy stuff from him. Obviously you can't fly to Kentucky and train on a regular basis. You can buy his courses. You can buy T-shirts. So he delights and he's endearing himself. But there in person, he's done this so well, he's going to open a second school across town. So a lot of things to learn there. Business, I always say that the number one job of a business owner is to market. You've got to market yourself. But it doesn't come natural for most of us. You got to toot your own horn, and we're raised to not toot our own horns. But now, if you don't toot your own horn, there is no music. And it's tough to outsource it. Yeah, at times, you need help with some technical stuff, videographers, SEO people, advertising, PPC. But it's your message. They need to deliver your vision. That's marketing. You got to figure this out, okay? Let me or someone like me help you do that. Help you find your voice and shout it from the rooftops. It's just, you can figure it out on your own, but it's hard. It's just going to take longer. So if you got more time and you like learning things the hard way, keep on keeping on. Otherwise, reach out. Let me help you, all right? thesaleswhisperer.com. Hit me up. And I will help you grow your sales. I promise. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.